Your news starts now with this special Pig Trail Nation report.
Yes, we can say it's over. Breaking news here in the Pig Trail Nation. Sam Pittman is the new head coach of the Arkansas Razorback football program. I say it's over, that the search is finally concluded, and I'm like,
the run
goodness.
Is just beginning. Yes,
I know.
We can all
You're
breathe.
right. Point
being. Right?
But anyway, congrats to Sam, and can't wait to see this guy back on the hill. This guy's an Oklahoma native, played at Pittsburgh State. At Georgia, they promoted him to associate head coach back in February. He's been the O-line coach at Georgia, we know, and obviously with the Bulldogs, one of the best O-line coaches in the country, and certainly one of the best recruiters in the country. Look at more on his background right now. You look at this. Obviously, he's had the stint at Tennessee, the time at North Carolina as well. We got Mike Irwin, Terry Talmadge, Alyssa Warren, Alyssa. This is a big personality, and just love this guy.
Well, we just said it in our Pig Trail show that this is a guy who, when he was here as an offensive line coach, would walk in, sit down, take off his shoes and socks, and then talk to us. That's the kind of guy you're going to get with Sam Pittman. Very laid back. Don't be surprised. Obviously, he's not going to be sitting down when he's talking to us as a head coach, but we'll have flip-flops on, maybe no shoes at all when he's at the podium. That's just kind of how he is, but he's also a no-nonsense kind of guy, and he knows how to coach, and he knows how to develop. That's something I didn't say when we were in our Pig Trail show, is that development is so critical, and we have seen the lack of development with this offensive line specifically, but the team overall over the past couple of years, and Sam Pittman knows how important that is, and it's why he's successful and good at his job. So really excited to see not only who he brings in, because I know and I feel like there's a lot of excitement around who Sam Pittman could bring in, but let's look at this roster right now and these offensive linemen, and I want to see what Sam Pittman can do with the guys that he already has here.
Guys like Myron Cunningham, Boise Nwana, who knows? Nwana certainly didn't play much for Arkansas.
Ricky Stromberg,
right? Yeah. Ricky Stromberg started a lot as a true freshman. Tara, I'm just glad the search is over, because this has been probably the most exhausting of my 19-year career in television. I'm just glad it's done. And I really do like Sam Pittman. I do know there's a little hesitation on some people's parts, given the fact this guy does not have a lot of head coaching experience.
Yeah, and that's understandable, but going through this entire coaching process, we had talked about it before. I don't think any of the names that came up really, were that exciting. None of us were like, yes, that's it. That's the pick. You've got to go with him. And I know a lot of people were excited about Lane Kiffin and that opportunity, but truthfully, I don't think that was a good fit in the long term. You look at Lane Kiffin and what he's done in the past, that probably wouldn't have been best, and I don't think he really wanted this job, clearly. You have Sam Pittman now, who does, and he loves the state of Arkansas. He's been here before, and I think that hiring him to come back as a head coach really makes the most sense.
Yeah, no wow factor with this hire, in my opinion.
Right.
But Mike, when you look at this overall, here's somebody who the players seem to really enjoy, and certainly what he developed when he was an O-line coach at Arkansas was something special. It's just a matter now of other pieces. Who do you put around Sam Pittman in terms of the coaching staff?
Well, that's going to be the first thing we look at, is who are his coordinators, who is he going to put on his staff, is there a clear upgrade there? I expect there to be. I think I've been told there'll be more money for this staff, so he should be able to. But yeah, he's got to surround himself with some pretty good people, and I'm going to wait and see who they are. He's going to get, I think he's going to get asked some tough questions, because he's never been a head coach at the college level. And so that's a legitimate question to answer. How do you deal with that? He's never been the guy on the sidelines that has to make the calls. And so even Barry Lunny said that all these things that were new to him. So it's going to be new to Sam Pittman too. So we'll see how it works out. But again, I've been surprised at the positive reaction on social media. I expected a lot of blowback from people that wanted a more glamorous name. And for the most part, it's been pretty positive. I think people realize that the big problem with this football team going back about 4 or 5 years, but it really goes back to when Sam Pittman left. Because there's never really been a good offensive line at this school since he left out of here. And so the idea that he would come back and change that. The other thing you need to keep an eye on very quickly is he's got 1 weekend to recruit for the early signing period. Now, what does he do in that early signing period? If he comes in and really does some damage even in the early period, that's going to impress some people. So we'll be looking at that.
And I agree. And we all like Sam. We were here when Sam was here, and you met Sam when you were hanging out with Frank Ragnow during his NFL draft party. But again, we do have to kind of also point to the fact that Hunter Yurachek sat there and looked us in the eye and said, we cannot afford to get this wrong. And we sat here and talked about how Sam Pittman is great of a guy. We think he can do a good job. he's a risk. And it's interesting to me now as I look at this search that has Arkansas once again taken too big of a risk with what Yurchek said. You can't go back and undo what's happened, and excited for the future, no doubt. But it's a very interesting hire considering what Hunter Yurchek said to us in that press conference when he announced Barry Lundy Jr. as the interim.
Well, we'll get into the state of the program here a little bit more, but I think when you just look at it in terms of what he's been around, I mean, he's coached as an O-line coach in a national title game. He's just been around, in my opinion, greatness. And I know that he's got a lot to learn as a head coach because he doesn't have much experience. But I feel good about that, just where he's been, what he's seen, what he's observed, and the people he can put around him.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the interim head coaching situation, and we were talking about Lunny possibly being that coach, I don't think that would have sold tickets. And right now, the university needs to sell some tickets. I think Sam Pittman is a name that, yes, it's not, the most exciting name out there right now, but it is something that gets the fans excited about the program and what it could potentially be. So, in that sense, yes, this is a great decision for Arkansas.
I could see this guy winning the press conference, but how do you think this hire will be received, Mike?
Again, so far I've been surprised. Pretty good. Now, how's it going to be received by the current players? The former players love him because they know him. So how's the current player, how's that bunch going to look, after a week or whatever? Well, here's what he'll be able to do. He'll be able to sit down with those guys and say, I've been at Georgia. I know how to win. They know how to win. We're going to make you them. And we're going to make you them because you're going to become what they are. And I know what they are. That's the way you sell that. And again, the other thing, I got this on Twitter. It's pretty funny. The guy said, no slogans. I don't agree. I think he does need a slogan. I think he needs a slogan, down the middle of the road and run you over.
He's already got it. I mean,
that is yes, sir.
I mean, Mike on the front end getting it done for Sam Pittman. But, yeah, I mean, unless you look at it, I'm so tired of hearing hammer down, full tilt boogie. The whole thing was so frustrating. And, first of all, when you get in there, we know this.
Worked,
hey, guess
it
what?
would have been great.
We know this.
But it never worked.
We know when Sam Pittman's at his press conference, he's going to know how to pronounce Bielema.
That's true.
And Chad Morris couldn't do it.
Yeah, well, there's that. But, look, I think we also need to, as we've talked about, who he's going to build around him. He's going to bring in great people. Tara's talking about excitement. If you go on Twitter right now, every former player that played under Pittman at Arkansas when he was here is ecstatic right now. Open letter from the players talking about why it was important to bring Pittman here. You've got Travis Swanson, a big-time guy who really only played under Pittman for, I think, 2 years when he was here, or even just a year, and how he rallied behind what he wants. Again, this is Luke Charpentier, who played here in 2011 to 14 on Sam Pittman. Again, you want to sell tickets? Well, I guarantee you're going to have a lot more former players in that stands now that this hire has been made than you did this past season under Chad Morris.
Yeah, you can see that quote right there, just talking about how he's a great man, great leader of young men, will be, of course, an incredible head coach for the Razorbacks in their opinion, and that's actually the opinion in particular of Mitch Smothers, and Mitch, certainly a very good O-lineman for the Arkansas Razorbacks back in the day. Coach Pittman is a guy that the players will rally behind immediately. This is from Dan Skipper, who Alyssa mentioned. I followed him from Tennessee because, of course, this is a great guy. He always had our backs as players. The biggest thing people need to understand is he wanted this job. That's a crucial part right there from Dan, because I think when you have leverage, if you're Lane Kiffin and you go to Ole Miss and you had that leverage to say, well, everything has opened up because 10 wins this past season, Florida Atlantic, things do open up. And it's Lane Kiffin, the stops he made, and I know there's so much talk about him, so I'll stop right now about Lane Kiffin. But that's the point. You just look at the likes of Eli Drinkwitz, Brian Harsin, other names that were mentioned. We'll get more of an idea from Hunter Yurchek at the press conference where he went officially with this search in terms of who was an official finalist.
Right.
So much has been thrown out there. Of course, the new head coach for the Razorbacks, Sam Pittman.
Well, we'll hear from him tomorrow. I was about to say, we just got an email, 3 p.m. tomorrow, and we've been invited to hear from Hunter Yurchek about the introduction of Sam Pittman as the new head coach. So we will be able to hear from him approximately tomorrow, 3:30, inside the Fred W. Smith Center. So I know a lot of fans looking forward to what both the AD has to say and the brand new head coach, Sam Pittman.
Great timing with that. And congrats to Sam, and welcome back to the Hill. We will continue on the web. We'll talk more about the hiring of Sam Pittman at Arkansas. we are back. Just like that.
Just like that.
And we have Mike Irwin, Tara Talmadge, listening
we have a video. I wish I could play it for you guys.
Are we still on? Are we still on?
We are. So Hunter Yurchek just tweeted out a video of him and Sam Pittman holding a football helmet with a Razorback on it. It says, excited to officially announce Sam Pittman as our new head football coach. Great days ahead for the Hogs with Sam and Jamie as part of the Razorback family again.
Oh, they're going to love it. And again, talking about Sam's wife, Jamie, they're just great people. They were so much fun when they were here. I know that they have a lake house here. So just personally excited to be back in the state.
There's a crucial part of this, too. He can sell Arkansas. I mean, he knows all about it and loves Arkansas. And that's the thing. A lot of this is what we continue to mention. It's a hidden gem. Northwest Arkansas, just being the opportunity to be here and know that once you get these recruits here, you can tell them more and more about how great it is. And I think that's how they were able to get guys with, I think, fairly big names like Jalen Catalon and, Devin Bush. Of course, Bush left, but, everything that happened with the previous staff was a nightmare. So let's start with the good stuff, and that is Sam Pittman. I believe we have some sound now as Sam Pittman has been hired by Arkansas.
Go Hogs! Yes, sir!
There it is.
I love that.
I mean, that's really all you need, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he's excited to be back.
I'm pumped. It'll be great.
I think, like we've mentioned this whole time, they needed someone that wanted this job. Eric Musselman wanted that job. Sam Pittman wants to be here and grow this program into what it can be. Like, he knows what it can be. He's seen it before. So I think it's going to be a good hire for Arkansas. Yeah. Fingers crossed. Hope I don't jinx it. But, Mike, what are your thoughts?
In this press conference tomorrow, one of the crucial things that's going to be asked, and I don't know how he's going to answer it, is Yurchek's going to be asked to explain all this Kiffin stuff. Was it just not there? Did he, contact him and talk to him and quickly realize he wasn't all that fired up and move away from him, or did Ole Miss just steal him? Here's the thing that strikes me about all of that. This Ole Miss rivalry with Arkansas just went to another level. Because initially, I would say Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the reaction to that was, we're idiots. We let Ole Miss come and steal this guy. We're morons. I think that's going to quickly turn around into anger against Ole Miss and okay, let's go get those guys. Now, it's going to be a challenge because they're in pretty good shape right now. I think most people would say their roster top to bottom is more solid. And Lane Kiffin is a good coach. But this could turn in. I've told people for years that the problem that Arkansas has in the SEC is they don't have somebody they really hate. They don't. I mean, it's kind of LSU, and it's like, oh, we'd like to beat Alabama, but we can't. This could turn into, hey, those rebel Black Bear guys, dudes, we don't like them.
We don't like them.
And we want to make Lane Kiffin whittle. I think I'm going to start calling him Wayne Kiffin. Just spelling them Wayne Kiffin.
Just to have fun with it.
Just to have fun with this thing.
Yeah. What's interesting, and we've talked a lot about, and I mentioned this earlier, development. There was a coach who took over a program today, and it surprised me in a good way when he said, I went and I met with this team, and I said, you chose this university. I chose you. I am your coach now. You are my players now. And there's been so much talk when Chad Morris was here of, these aren't my guys. These aren't my guys. Takes time to get people in here. And for a coach to say, you are my players now, I would like to hear something like that from Sam Pittman. Embrace who you have here, because maybe your biggest recruitment right now, not this upcoming class. Yes, it's important, but keeping guys who are talented here at Arkansas and not having them put in the transfer portal.
Well, to that end, I felt like Chad Morris treated every game at Arkansas for the most part like a practice game. And that frustrated me because of some of those things you mentioned. Like, these aren't my guys, It's going to take time. It's not an overnight fix. Well, he didn't fix anything. And not to just rain on his parade considerably, but that's what happened in the Chad Morris era. It was that much of a debacle, but now it's a new era. Sam Pittman, the new head coach for the Razorbacks. We have former Razorback DJ Williams with us. DJ, what do you think about Sam?
Sorry, I'm finishing my Pringles. Caught me at the wrong time.
I should have known.
Yeah, it's a movie night. We're watching The Resident. Heard the news about old Pittman and all that good stuff. Well, when I look at the state of Arkansas football program, and I think collectively everyone will say the biggest issue with this football team the past 2 to 4 years has just been our play at offensive line. in defensive line, up front in the trenches. It's more of like a mentality and an identity of the football team that we're missing. So, the battle up front and just having overall tough guys. And that's kind of what we've been missing as identity. And when you think of the perfect guy for that, Sam Pittman checks off all those boxes. Now, when he was here and, we were doing well offensively, was that because of him or Dan Enos? His success at Georgia, was it because of, the head coach and their scheme or the offensive line coach? I think most people would say that's more of an Enos and more of Kirby Smart over there at Georgia. But this kind of reminds me a little bit of, look at what LSU has in Ed Orgeron. Like, he's not an offensive guru by any means, and they have one of the best offenses we've seen in college football from what everyone, almost in the history of college football. And it's because, Ed Orgeron, he understands, his biggest weaknesses, and he'll make sure that he gets the staff around him. And, and he has people who want to not just play for him as players, but he has coaches that want to coach, in his football program. And I think a personality like Sam Pittman, from all I've heard from past players and coaches, he has that infectious personality, and I think he's going to have the ability to bring in guys who can put together a great offensive scheme. He's going to have guys that come in here, and coach defense and make sure they play with a different kind of edge. And so, the guy like Sam Pittman, head coaches are mostly just facilitators, and they have to be somebody that can get guys to believe in something, and I think he's a good start when it comes to moving this football program in the right direction.
Yeah, DJ, that's the thing. I think when you look back at 2015, that's the last time Arkansas collectively had a really good offensive line. It wasn't spotty. You didn't just have one or two guys. All five guys were not only just solid, some of them were outstanding. And that's where it speaks to the depth. How much do you think he's going to be able to shore that up in terms of the depth, given the things that you just mentioned?
I think, he can develop players and, maybe get some good recruits here at the offensive line position. All that's great. But I think when you look back at those years, the offensive line they really took it personal when they didn't play well, or if one guy made a mistake or the quarterback got hit. You didn't see things on tape where your quarterback's getting sacked with 3 or 4 or 5 defensive players on top of him, and no one from the offensive line is going back there to help him up, or there's not a right guard, that's getting on to the right tackle for not doing his job. Those things just didn't fly back in 2015 under Sam Pittman. He made each guy understand that, like, hey, we're a unit. If one guy messes up, we all mess up. If one guy triumphs, we all triumph. And that's just the mentality you need at that, position group. And they were a little nasty, too. I saw some people on social media talk about, Sam Pittman, he'll bring them dogs in here. And I've been saying that for a long time. We need some dogs on the team. I would even kind of push back some questionable character to get some dogs on this team, because we're just not mean enough like we used to be back in the day.
Yeah, I think those are all great points. You think about it, and Mike, I'll let you ask a question to DJ if you want here. He's talking about the physicality and just the fact that you got to have that DNA set up to where these guys just want to punch you in the mouth. And Arkansas had that with that big O-line back in 2015. But it's not just the offensive side of the ball. I think knowing that in the trenches offensively what you need, then you know what would need to combat that if you're a defensive front. So just in terms of talking about a line of scrimmage league, what about that, Mike?
Well, I just, there's so many things you could ask about that, but it's the whole toughness issue, because that was the belief that this team just didn't have it. They would go in. Look, I heard from one of the parents when this thing was over and Morris was gone, and he said his son was mad because they didn't get chewed out. He said at halftime of the Auburn game, they were getting beat so badly that they thought they were really going to get chewed out. And he said Morris came in and said, let's get hydrated. And that was pretty much it. So, DJ, what about it? Do players actually like to be chewed out when they're not playing well?
Man, players like to be pointed in the right direction, and now how that happens, is depending on the coaching style. But, I was watching in the sideline a lot of the times after, the offense would come off after doing a poor possession this year and last year. Offensive coach, not one time did I see him just really aggressively correcting, one of the players on the football team. And that just leaves this feeling in the air like, man, I can mess up and it not be a big deal. when a coach gets into your face and a coach yells at you, you know, with the guy, from what I heard, like Sam Pittman, if he's doing that to his players, he's created such a personal bond with these players to where they respect him and they trust him. So when he yells at them, gets in their face and chews their butt out, they see it in a way of like, man, he cares about me and he knows I can do better. And, you know, you're right, I can do better. And so he may be aggressively yelling at me, but he's coaching me at the same time. I think the greatest snippet, you could probably go on YouTube or Twitter or somewhere, and there's a little clip of two linebackers for the Dallas Cowboys getting chewed out by their position coach, their linebacker coach. And they both just sit there and they nod their head and they take the coaching and they go out there and make the correct, things that they need to do to make sure they go out and perform better. So, yeah, I mean, it would be weird. I mean, I couldn't imagine a world coming in at halftime and us being beat like we did, and Bobby Petrino comes in there and says, hey, guys, you know, get your Gatorade, you know, there's a couple peanut butter jelly sandwiches, make sure you feel a little better. You know, it just kind of sets the tone and sets a certain sense of urgency to make sure you understand what's at stake. And that was missing with the 2 years with Morris.
Yeah, Tara, I don't know what you got for DJ, but here's my thing. In terms of flexibility, what you might be able to do now offensively with a really good mind in terms of the offensive lineman, he's coming in, he knows what you need up front, and I think he can put the pieces around him in terms of the position coaches and the coordinators to get it done. But just that flexibility to not only move the football effectively and think outside the box, but do it with a powerful effect as well. Yeah. And then once you get in the red zone, finish with touchdowns rather than field goals.
Yeah, I think this kind of says it. Marcus Spears tweeted out and said, Sam Pittman is about to turn them Razorback football players back into bullies at the line of scrimmage. I think that's exactly what needs to happen. And also, I mean, like you guys have mentioned, Pittman's he's a tough love kind of coach. And I think the Razorbacks could probably use that at this point in time.
Yeah.
Hey, to add on top of that, with his mentality and everybody's thinking this is going to be the best thing for the offensive line, obviously he's not going to coach offensive line. You know what I mean? So I'm very curious to see, who he feels is that personality that can be up to his standard as far as coaching those guys up front. And then that just kind of goes on with the whole entirety of his, future, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, position groups. I mean, now that we got this kind of figured out, I think that's going to be the next biggest talker is who is he going to bring in, because I know everybody's all excited, mostly because the praise he's getting from former players, and he's been a part of Georgia's success and our success back in 2015. But at the same time, head coaching is a lot different than just being a position coach, So I kind of saw Mike's comment as well, was he was kind of surprised about the reaction on Twitter. And I would be with Mike on that, There's still a lot of unknowns surrounding him in this role, and very interested to see how he kind of takes over from just being a really good offensive line coach to now a facilitator of the whole football program. I mean, it's a lot different role, and it could affect the way he approaches the game a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if it did. Well,
like you said, DJ, you're a facilitator as a head coach, you're a CEO, and Mike, that's the thing. You come in, you inherit a program that you know very well, but this is a program that's on a 19-game SEC losing streak. What's step one, and how do you embrace turning it around if you're Sam Pittman? Because right now you're the laughingstock of the SEC.
Well, it's going to start with recruiting, and how many, portal people do you bring in? Can you bring in some instant help, especially in the offensive line? That would help. Then you go into this off-season period, and the off-season, it never gets much publicity. You won't get to see it. But that's where all the baloney has been, I think, because I see all these tweets going back to Bielema and all through Morris, and they're talking about the culture's changed and all of that. Come on. I mean, clearly it hasn't been. So does he really do something in that off-season that's different? And then you get into spring ball, and then we see that more. And what happens in spring ball? I would say right off the bat, it's a good idea not to have your spring game in the 1st of April when it's snowing and freezing outside, because Chad Morris did that. And I remember thinking at the time, does he not understand he's not in Dallas anymore? Yeah. 1st of April, it can be really cold there. How about having your spring game at the end of April when you got a better chance of it being warm and you got people in there? Yeah. And then the second thing would be, in this spring game, do they look like the quarterbacks and everybody else look like they can run the offense? Because when they don't, you're kind of going, oh, I don't know about that. And then we saw that continued for 2 years. So I'd like to see some evidence that the quarterbacks understand the offense.
Otis, you've been doing this a long time. Otis Kirk, our recruiting insider. This is kind of twofold, but Otis, what can Sam do for this program in terms of recruiting? And once he gets these guys here, the way he can develop them.
Well, there you go. He stole my question, Otis. What do you think he can do when he brings guys in to recruit and really just be able to develop?
Well, I think the thing about Sam is he can sell the U of A because he loves it. I mean, he told me once how you recruit is to Arkansas is you've got to believe this is the best job in the world. And he believes that. So, I mean, that's how because I asked him once, how do you know, I mean, I didn't know how he could sell it to 4- and 5-star recruits that he was. He said, you've got to believe that you're recruiting to the best school possible. So not only can he sell that to the idea, then when he gets them here, he can motivate them, but he can also develop them. I'm not sure there's been that. I think that's what's been missing over there recently in several years is development of players. You know, it's one thing to get kids here, but I haven't seen the development of some of the kids, especially since Sam and some of those guys left. And so I think he can develop them, but he'll motivate them. I mean, he'll have them playing their best capability. Listen, it's not an accident that all the ex-players that played for him, all of them, they love him, man. I mean, they get on there and talk great things about him and stuff. And, you know, and I've already had one of his former recruits message me and say he wants, you know, he's going to talk to him about a job here. So, I mean, he's got people excited. The people that know him, anyone that's not excited is probably the ones that don't know him. They're looking at a guy maybe because he hasn't been a head coach. That'll all get
resolved.
That'll get resolved. Once they get to know Sam, they'll understand why the rest of us are happy for him.
Yeah, you've been covering recruiting for a long time. Do you remember maybe some specifics that some of these recruits back in the day when Sam Pittman was here, maybe guys he did end up bringing to the Hill said about Sam Pittman during that recruiting process?
Yeah, they all just thought that he came into their home, and even if they were lukewarm about Arkansas, they got pretty excited. I mean, he almost made them get excited because of his excitement, you know. And, you know, Sam I'll tell you, well, I better not tell that story, but there's, but there's some great stories about Sam. And there was one. I'll just go ahead and tell it. We got time? Okay,
yes,
Sebastian Trottola, he recruited Sebastian Trottola.
Yeah.
Sebastian went back to junior college, and when Sam picked him up at the airport, you know, Sam looked at him and he said, "You've been eating like I have," because he hadn't seen him in a while, and Sebastian put on too much weight. And so Sam immediately got Sebastian down there, and they started working with him to lose some of that weight. So, but yeah, I mean, he that's just how he is. I mean, he can say that, and the recruit will take it to heart. And you know, he's a great guy. He's funny, but yet he can be funny. And he can be comical, but he knows when to get serious. It's like everybody was talking earlier. He may come in, I think it was you with flip-flops on, but he knows when to get serious. And the players can sense that, and they play their rears off for him. That's one thing that we all know has been missing is the players, the buy-in. They will have the buy-in. Now, there may be some initially that don't want him and they don't buy in, they leave. But the ones that stay here, I promise you, there will be a 99% buy-in.
No, we don't really know the kind of style Coach Pittman's going to adapt to as a head coach now in the SEC. And there's a lot that comes with that, obviously, than just being the offensive line coach or associate head coach and recruiting coordinator. What kind of head coach do you see him becoming? More of a CEO kind of head coach or a player's head coach? What do you think we're going to get from Sam Pittman in that realm?
Well, I think the main thing here is, and I would have said this about any coach, but I think the main thing here is Sam has got to hire a great staff. I mean, you look at Ed Orgeron at LSU. He struggled at Southern Cal some. He struggled at Ole Miss. But he's struggling at LSU. I mean, you know, there were rumors he was going to be fired, and then he goes and makes some changes to his staff. I think the thing about Sam is he will be a little of both. He will be a CEO. He will hire great coaches and let them do their jobs, but he will also be a player's coach. But the thing when people say player's coach, so many times they think of somebody that's a pusher. Like I said, here's the deal with Sam. He can be a player's coach, but they know when he gets serious, it's time to get serious. And not everybody has that.
Respect.
Yeah, that respect, and just, he's kind of got the it factor.
Yeah.
Listen, that's what he's got. He's got the it factor. I mean, people will follow him, and they go by his example and his lead, and the buy-in's going to change dramatically.
The it factor there, Drew. You heard it here from Otis Kirk. We're going to get that from Sam Pittman once he comes to the Hill.
Yeah.
Excited to see what he has to say even tomorrow in his introductory press conference.
Yeah, you said it, Otis and Alyssa. I mean, he really does have that it factor, and it reminds me of Eric Musselman because it's that tough love. I think it's just, okay, as Otis mentioned, when it's time to get serious, it's time to get serious. But you got to have that thick skin as a player, and I think they'll have it under Sam Pittman because of the bond he will develop there, and it'll be a great relationship, I think, between the players and Sam Pittman. Sam Pittman, the new head hog, will have much more coverage throughout the night here from the Pig Trail Nation. We'll see you.